What's up, gentlemen? This is Rising Phoenix Podcast, a podcast about how to rise up after your divorce. I'm your host, divorce coach Michael Rhodes. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the show. This is episode 127. This is essentially part 2 of 126. It's a continuation or the second meeting that took place on Thanksgiving Day. I said in 126 that it was a little bit different tone. It's pretty similar. In terms of it's just the guys kind of talking about what we've been through and what we're going through and all those kinds of things. It's going to sound a bit choppy in pieces because there was a particular gentleman who he didn't want his story out there, so I had to edit his out, which is fine. But that made it a little bit choppy because he would interject with his story, and that would that would cause the flow to go one way. And taking those pieces out, there are certain sections where it just sounds like it changes out of left field, but it's just because his content had to be pulled out. So the only difference, and I thought it was going to be much different than 126, but it's pretty similar. The only real difference is there's a chunk of time, about maybe 3/4 of the way through, where we talk about podcast stats. I wanted to do that again in this little intro here and talk about. So Buzzsprout is the host. So in other words, when I upload an episode, it uploads to Buzzsprout, and then through RSS feeds, it goes out to Apple and Spotify and all that kind of good stuff. So if you follow me or if you're a friend on Facebook, and I really got to get better at putting this stuff out. But if you're a friend with me on Facebook, then you've seen the Spotify Wrapped, which is just a snapshot of the podcast on Spotify only. And nobody else does that. Apple doesn't do a Wrapped or a year-end review or whatever. Nobody else does, to my knowledge. And this year, actually, Buzzsprout did its own. They're calling it Backtrack. So I want to read a little bit of the stuff that they put out. So I did 35 episodes last year, which is an average of 2.92 episodes per month. There was a time during this year where I stepped back, and it was needed and necessary, and it's kind of sucks when you get to the end of the year and you're like, you kind of miss some of your goals. But I had to do what I had to do. And I think, almost, we'll call it, damn near 3 episodes a month. It's not too shabby. I think my goal is 4 a month, 1 a week, but sometimes I can do that and sometimes I can't. This one obviously is going to be the second one this week, but and I want to touch on that in a little bit, but let me get through these stats. So of all of the podcasts that Buzzsprout hosts, and I don't know the number, they're a pretty popular one, but they aren't the only one. The Rising Phoenix Podcast is in the top 25% of those podcasts. What does that mean? So that sounds more impressive than it kind of is. So the top 50% or bottom 50, whichever way you want to look at it, that equates to 30 downloads in the first week after release. So someone puts out an episode, and after the first week, at least 30 people have listened, which, that's not too shabby. But that just goes to show you how many podcasts there are that get very few listens. So being in the top 25% means I get 105 listens within the first week. That's less than typical for me. Typical is probably about between 200 and 225. I'd probably say 225 on average is roughly within the first 7 days. To be in the top 10%, I would need to hit 405 within that first 7 days. So I'm halfway there. So I'm probably top 20%, give or take. And then top 5% is 975 downloads and or listens. By the way, so a download is essentially a listen for, I think it's 10 seconds at least, if I'm not mistaken. It might even only be 1 second, not 100% sure. But a download and a listen, essentially the same thing. It's as soon as someone listens for a period of time, and it's a very short period of time. Like I said, I think it's 10 seconds. That counts as a download. The top 5% is not, I think I said this, 975, and then the top 1% is 4588. So 4,588 listens within 7 days. I don't know, how many are in. I think there are, well, you could probably do the math. I think there are 2 million-ish podcasts. So I'm terrible at math. So at least a million of them aren't well listened to, you know. So I'm 20, top 25, top 20 percent, give or take, isn't, it's not too shabby. I don't do any ads. Fortunately, I run the Divorce Support for Men group, and that's where a large part of my listeners come from. But I do hear like little smatterings of things, like people finding out about the podcast in different ways, and it's interesting stuff. Anyway, on to some more metrics. The number one city, so the most popular city in totality in 2023 is actually Melbourne. I don't know if is Melbourne, right? I don't know. You guys can tell me. And again, if you're friends on Facebook, you've seen some of this. For whatever reason, so on Spotify, Melbourne and Sydney are actually my top two. It's a little different here, but like I said, Spotify is its own little snapshot. So Melbourne is number one at 356 downloads, in 2023 in that city, which I don't know what that means. In terms of like, are there 10 people there listening, or are there 20, or are there 356 that listen once? I mean, it's just, there's so many unknowns with podcast stats and stuff. Next is Chicago, Illinois with 345, Sydney, like I said, in Australia, 251, Phoenix, 224, and Philadelphia, 186. This is for episodes in 2023. So the totality is different, but just in 2023, there was 356 downloads out of Melbourne this year. So again, cool shit. And listen, honestly, 356 doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, but that's one city. And again, how many people is that? I don't fucking know. 67 countries this year. I don't know if I'll read the numbers, but maybe I will. US, Canada, UK, Australia, Germany. And so you see the weirdness of this. Like, so two of my top 5 cities are in Australia, but Australia is my 4th country. So it's very strange. US is 13,000 this year, 13,707. Canada was 1,147. United Kingdom 1,052. Australia 872, and Germany 116. That's the top 5 countries. Again, in 2023 only. It's different in totality, or at least it's not exactly like that, I don't think. Top episodes. Episode 96, Negative Thought Loops. Episode 95, The Pain of Rejection. Episode 92, Real Men, Real Stories. Andrew, great episode. Episode 102, Untying Emotional Knots. And episode 98, Infidelity, were the top 5 episodes for this podcast in 2023. So that's it. I just wanted to cover. So here's a sort of a snapshot. It says I'm top 25% of all shows, 36,000 downloads this year, 35 episodes, 67 different countries, 1,638 minutes of content. Pretty cool stuff. So, I think we had this discussion on this episode. Is it successful? I guess it depends on your metric. Am I making money? Yeah, kind of, I guess. People contribute monthly. There's 41 or 42 contributors every month. It's only $5 a month. Some guys do give a little bit more, which is I'm grateful for. When I say it's used, it truly is. The Otter, my transcript service, is due, and I got to pay that. And I need the contributions to do that. Zoom is going to be due soon, and I'm going to need to pay that. And there's a couple other things sprinkled out here and there, like Calendly, the app that I use to book guests sometimes, or book clients. Let's see what else is there. Quicken. I have to do accounting and shit, because I do get money. So that's, that I got to pay for that. So, so it is absolutely used and needed and appreciated for sure. So, but is this podcast successful? Has it helped? Then the answer is yes. Has it allowed me to only do this for a living to make money? No. Will it? I don't know. I don't have any intention of stopping. Really don't. I had 2 interviews this week, which I don't know if I'll release them. So here's I wonder if I bring this up now. I want to get to the episode, but I do want to talk about this real quick. So let's put a pin in that. The answer to the question is it successful? It depends on your metric. How's that? So I had mentioned this in a couple of episodes, or at least one episode. Spotify has a Q&A thing. So I've never claimed to be an Einstein. So I thought the Q&A function was they would ask me a question and I would respond. Well, that's not how it works. So apparently the Q&A function within Spotify, and I don't know if Spotify ever sent out an email. I read this in somewhere, I can't remember where, but the purpose of the Q&A function is that I ask you a question, the audience, and you answer. And people have been using it to comment, which is great, but I can't respond. So if you've commented on Spotify, thank you so much. I can't respond. But let's use this Q&A as it's intended. So if you listen on Spotify, you can use this. And by the way, Google, if you're listening on Google Podcasts, and there's 114 of you that follow me on Google Podcast, Google Podcasts, I'm sure you know this, is going away at the middle. It doesn't say, it says mid-year 2024, whatever the fuck that means. June, July, May, I don't know. Who knows? It's not specific. You're going to need to find I'm going to need to do this too. So maybe I'll try some things and let you guys know, because I listen to podcasts myself, but I use Google. So I'm not sure what it's going to, I think that their intention is to put Google Podcasts within Google Music. So if you have Google Play Music, or what do they call it now? YouTube Music, I think they call it now. Then that's probably where everything's going to go. And they've allowed the ability for me to send the audio only episodes to YouTube at this point. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. Probably will, only because I don't want to completely lose out on any opportunities for listeners. But I don't want to, I guess it's going to be both. So I think if you go to my YouTube channel, you're going to see the audio one and the video one. I guess that's the way it's going to be. I don't know. I'm not sure if the video version will be available in the same way that an audio one would be with inside YouTube Music. I'm not sure. But anyway, my point is, we're going to need to find an app, and maybe, I'll keep you posted on what I do. But anyway, my whole fucking point was, let's try and use this Spotify Q&A feature. I recorded 2 what I think are pretty good episodes this week. I am considering releasing these episodes both next week. And part of me is, I want to do it because, if I'm being honest, I want to do it because I want to hit a certain goal of downloads for the year. I had a goal of getting to a total of 100,000 downloads. I am not going to make that. I revised that down a bit, and I'm hopeful that I can meet that. If I release 2 episodes next week, I'll be a lot closer to it. My revised goal. Do you, dear listeners on Spotify, you think I'm cheating? Should I just release 1 a week and not try to get that goal? Or are you guys okay with that? I don't know. It feels a little disingenuous, I guess, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just making up for the episodes that I did miss. I'm not sure. So, and going forward, I may find different ways to use this Q&A thing now that I understand it a little bit better. I may ask questions in I don't know, every episode, but more episodes, and say, audience, what do you think? So let's try and use this thing. Let's give it a shot, and on this particular episode, and put it to use. So that's all I got, I think, for sort of housekeeping type stuff. I had to step back, but this year a little bit, but I still think the numbers all in all are pretty good. Even with my little bit of a step back, there still was growth, for sure, in terms of number of downloads. I think that's all I got for this one. Hopefully you enjoy this. I will have an episode, at least one, out next week with a psychologist, and then I have one with an author. They're both, I think, pretty good episodes. So just let me know if you're listening on Spotify, if you think I should release only one next week, or fuck it and release both. And thank you sincerely to those of you that have commented on Spotify. I do appreciate it. So here we go, episode 127. Do you have to be around her still? I mean, imagine that you probably do.
Yeah, yeah, from time to time. And you know what? It's gotten a whole lot easier. The term "put away" comes to mind, and I don't think that's right. I'm going to say I've put away my anger, but that's not right. I've not put it away. I've dealt with it. I've come to terms with things. I've accepted things. I'm at peace with things, and yeah, being around her for family functions, and even reaching out every once in a while as the mother of my son, and somebody who I was the deepest of friends with for over 30 years. Yeah, it's a whole lot easier, and I really don't have a problem with it like I did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think at one point you guys were like, I mean, you had dinner on a couple of occasions, right?
Yes,
I mean, you've had like sort of
yep.
friendly interactions with her.
Yep, and we still do on occasion.
And how long did it take you to get to the point where you were able to have a friendly interaction with her?
Geez, at least 2 years, at least, probably 3. Yeah, I'm gonna go through with 3 years, but
yeah. And by the way,
and,
there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's
no.
reality. It took 3 years. It took 3 years.
Yeah, and that that time was all just me processing my shit and getting to a place of where I could accept the situation for what it is, accept her for who she is, accept me for who I am, and accept our where we stand in the world together for what it is. So,
do you think that were you consciously trying to not be angry, or how long did you hold on to your anger before you said, I'm guessing you at some point had to say, I don't want to be angry anymore. And so
absolutely.
how long did it take from like sort of deciding like, okay, I don't want to be angry anymore? How long did that take? A year or two, whatever. And then how long did it take to, I'll say, lessen, because I'm assuming the anger still creeps up here and there, right?
For sure.
So how long was it to the first one? How long did you decide, you know what, I don't want to be angry anymore?
It's funny. I didn't even get angry until at least 6 months in. And I think that was just the shock part of the the shock stage, the denial stage, whatever. I did not get angry for 6 to 9 months, and my therapist at the time, he was like, "Why aren't you angry? Why don't you get angry?" And at the time, I didn't feel that it served any purpose.
Yeah.
And he was like, I kind of get what you're saying. He's like, but at some point you're going to have to get angry. And I did. It finally naturally came. And I'd say it took me, it took me a couple of years to work through that. And yeah, there finally came a point in time where I decided I didn't want to be angry anymore.
And then how long did it take for you to process from that moment of making that decision, a conscious decision? I really don't want to be pissed anymore. How long did it take you to work through and to the point where you are now?
Oh, it's an ongoing process.
Amen. That's
sure.
I love that answer, because I think there are still moments that, I'm assuming, well, I talk to Chris, and even sometimes he's, 19, 20 years, and he still has moments like, so his daughter is getting married this weekend, his oldest daughter. I am sure he's going to have some moments of anger 20 years later, because I think this stuff, it's hard, and it's hurtful, and that brings up anger. And I think that's normal. But I think if you make a conscious decision I don't want to be that way, because I do think that when you are angry, she's controlling you, right? You're a little puppet. Like, she can make you angry whenever she wants, or whenever she pleases, or she might not even want, she just is. But that means, in my view, she's controlling you. And I don't think any of us really, if we really sit down and look at it, and we feel like we've been fucked in so many different ways, and we're heartbroken and hurt and all these things, we don't want to be controlled by them. I think ultimately you have to make that decision. Like, I don't want to be, and thus I don't want to be angry. And then you got to do the hard fucking work of working through all that shit. And I think it is an ongoing process, like, because life comes at you, and birthdays and were you guys, your son is married, right?
He is, yes.
Was he married before the divorce or after?
He was, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so you didn't have to deal with some of that, but now you have a grandkid, so you have to deal with some of that stuff, like birthdays
Yep.
and that kind of shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that well, you don't have to say, but the grandchild's pretty young, so you got a lot of milestones coming up, right? Preschool.
We're actually we've got 3 grandchildren now.
Oh shit! I thought it was only one.
Yeah, nope. Ages 3 to 9. So yeah, our family interactions together surrounding the grandkids, they're at least a few times a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
the past few years we've done Christmas together at the kids' house, and it's worked out. It's been fine.
Now is she dating anyone or anything of that nature?
I don't know.
She didn't bring him around.
Yeah, no. If she is, she's certainly not brought him around, and my son has not led me to believe. And if she is, good for her. If not, well, that's okay too.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's dive into that a little bit, because I know where kind of you're at in terms of even interest in dating, and you don't really have any, right? I mean, not at this point.
I do and I don't. I seem to still have some work to do on being confident enough and ready enough to put myself out there. The online dating thing just doesn't seem for me. I've gone as far as to set a profile up a few times, and and it's just like, nah, this isn't it. It's going to have to be organic, and I just haven't. Well, I shouldn't say I haven't. I have. I haven't really met anybody whose baggage matches my baggage, and whose baggage I want to pick up and carry. Sadly enough, the ladies I've been interested in are not available.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, how you doing, sir?
Mike,
It sucks. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
I think the pickings are slim. People complain,
Yes.
guys complain all the time. Where are the good ones at? Well, they're fucking married.
Yes.
I mean, they're married. I mean, not all of them that are married are good ones, but I'm saying the good ones that they're loyal and faithful and all that they're married. They're doing their thing. I think our best case scenario, and this is just me, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm sort of bitter in some kind of ways, but like, I think our best case scenario is someone that was cheated on, left, whatever. That her story mirrors our story, and she was hurt and devastated and all this kind of shit. And then she had to go do a lot of work and go through a lot of therapy and read a lot of books and do all these things and get into a healthy place. And I think that's the best case scenario. For me personally, I wouldn't want to be with a walkaway wife, someone who's like, oh, I just got tired of it. Okay. How long before you get tired of me? No, thank you.
Yeah.
A widow, no offense to anyone or whatever. My mom's a widow and stuff, but like, because my dad passed a long time ago, but I feel like you'd be living up to a ghost. I don't have any intention or interest in that. I mean, if people want to do it, that's great. I'm not knocking it, but for me personally, I have no interest in it. And so then what are we left with? That slim, I think, number of folks that have mirror our stories, because typically it is the woman that leaves. So I just think that makes the pool very, very small. And if you live in bumfuck Pennsylvania, it's even smaller. So I don't have much hope. I'm assuming something eventually will happen, but boy, sometimes I got to tell you, I'm just like, it fucking feels hopeless.
Well, and I think I've heard you mention this, and it rings very true with me. I think my standards now are way the fuck up here.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not talking physical standards. I mean, sure, that's nice. That's icing on the cake. But no, my standards are so fucking high, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to settle. I don't think I'm going to accept a lot of the things that I accepted in my marriage for 27 years. So yeah, and yeah, it's just going to have to happen organically, and so far it hasn't. So
yeah, and
when it does,
like,
it does.
And how we say organically, and I think that's the best way. But how do you think that will happen? I know you do a lot of bicycling and that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's co-ed thing or if that's with your boys, or like, how do you envision? Because I think that would be great too. But I also find myself sitting on my ass at home sometimes. And I'm like, well, who the fuck, how am I going to meet anybody doing this? But how do you see that playing out? Like, what does organically sort of mean to you?
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't do the bar scene. I'm not a terribly social person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do my fair share sitting home on my ass as well. And yeah, like you said, not gonna meet anybody on my couch. Yeah, the cycling thing is co-ed.
Oh, okay.
Due to the nature, it's much more women, or much more men than women, but that's
Sure.
just nature of the sport. But it's certainly co-ed, and yeah, that's where I've actually met some women who I am interested in, but they are not available. Yeah, and I'm not that guy.
No, 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 God, no, fuck that. Yeah, I mean, I struggle with like, how do you make it organic if you sit on your ass at home? Like, you can't.
Yeah,
It's not possible.
There's a lady at work who is very attractive, and she's I think she's a few years, couple 2-3 years younger than me. She's also divorced, and coworkers have been like, when are you going to ask her out? Why aren't you guys hooking up? Blah, 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 and I'm just like, well, first of all, I'm a pretty significant believer of, you don't shit where you eat. I've seen what can happen in that dynamic.
Yeah.
And second, okay, in some chats with her and stuff, it's like, I just don't know that there's a whole lot there, for us to grab hold of together. I don't know. I think she's made some questionable, if not bad, choices in men in the past, and I'm not sure I want to be her first good choice.
That's an interesting perspective. Well, I mean, I think, listen, there's a part of me going, well, look, you don't know till you know, right?
Yeah, true.
But I do agree, you don't shit where you eat. I think that could turn fucking. Now, is she like I mean, you work closely with her? Is something that, like, if it did get awkward, or if it did turn sour, it would be not good for your working day or whatever?
Well, we don't work on the same team, but in the same building, and there's maybe 100 people in the building. So,
I mean, fuck it, go for it. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? You only live once, my friend. You know what I'm saying? You only live once.
Yeah.
But I understand. I think there's a hesitation now. Curious if your sort of high standards, which I think mine are sometimes a detriment too, in a way, where it's like my standards are very high, and I wonder how much of that is. It's certainly righteous, but how much of it is protectionary? Like, how much of it is like, I'm going to make my standards so impossible that nobody can meet or beat it, and thus I'll never be with anyone again, and thus I'll never get hurt again. Like, how much
I think it's very protectionary.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really do.
Yeah.
Because none of us want to go through this shit show again.
Oh God, no. I don't understand the guys who. I mean, I do understand in some ways. Well, I don't understand the guys who get married again right away. Like, right away. That's just ridiculous. And then guys that jump into dating right away, although I was guilty of that, but I don't know if I would call it dating. I would call it whoring, maybe. Like, I could put my dick in anything I could. Like, I didn't care, right? But I never understood that, like, people that just like sort of discount the what occurred and just be like, oh, it was all her fault and just got to find another one or a better one. Good luck with that.
Yeah. It's no good either.
Well, I think, we talk a lot of times, I think in here, I think I try to stress that, it's, especially after it first occurs, it's important to work on yourself. But I think, if we're being honest, the long-term goal, it doesn't have to be, but I do think it is, because we're social creatures. We all crave connection. I think the ultimate goal is to return to a good relationship. And so I think it's important to talk about that and get to that. But I also think that, we have to make sure we're taking the time to make sure that we're doing the work, so we are ensured that the next one is a good one. Because if we just do the same shit over and over, or if we just sort of ignore our part in it and just try to dive into the next one, we're going to wind up right to fuck back where we are. And back to Pete, your point earlier, I don't want to go through this fucking shit again. One's enough for me. I'm not saying I don't want to I don't know about married. I'm not saying I don't want to be in a relationship again, but I sure as fuck don't want to be devastated like this again, ever. I mean, and sometimes there's only so much you can do to protect yourself. But if I don't do any kind of work on me and sort of trying to understand my part in it and fix best I can those things, then I'm in danger of repeating it. And I no fucking thanks. No thanks.
Heartbreak
Yeah.
is inevitable. If you love, you will get hurt.
Yeah, true.
That's
true
just
story.
the fucking reality of it. Unless you
Very
move
true.
to a monastery and never have contact with another person again, you
Yeah.
will be hurt by people.
True story.
The key is not making the same mistakes, not letting it destroy your entire self again. You know, I really firmly believe I'm 2 years out. I had one fling, not quite a year after separation. That was a very short fling, but honestly, I needed it to reestablish my confidence that, like, okay, I am a desirable man. I don't need this validation, but at that point, I did.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a relationship is always going to be the icing on a well-made cake. If you eat icing out of the tub without any goddamn cake, it is going to make you sick. You know, so a relationship really does need to be the icing on a really well-built life. And I think by doing that, yes, you're going to get your heart broken if you love anybody. That's inevitable. But by putting that icing on a well-made cake instead of a fragile cake, when shit inevitably blows up, whether it's, you know, the relationship dissolves, somebody dies, maybe you're the one that goes first. Hearts are going to get broken when you love, right? But when you put the icing on a good cake, hopefully it doesn't completely upend one's world again in such a traumatic, violent way that unexpected divorce does. Because I do think there's a big difference between unexpected divorce and being the one on the executing side.
Yeah.
I know in this group that may ruffle some feathers, but I think when you're hit with it compared to being the one launching it, it's a very different experience.
Yeah, well, and I will say the only caveat is if you're launching it because of other actions, but legit, like cheating, not just sometimes the shit that I think is, I don't know how much I buy, and like, oh, she treated me like shit or whatever. I'm not saying she didn't, but like, I don't know. You ultimately made a decision to leave anyway. But I think if there's cheating and that thing of that nature, it does skew that a little bit. But yeah, I think you're 100% right, and I think that's sometimes a problem that I have with this group sometimes, because I see guys come in here and sort of blame everything on her, and they're happy to be away from her, and I'm just like, that just kind of rubs me the wrong way, and good, bad, or indifferent for me personally. That rubs, because she was that guy, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, I was the worst fucking thing in the world, and thank God I got away from that narcissistic piece of shit, you know. And so listen, everybody needs support, and I don't want anyone to not seek it out if they need it. But sometimes I wonder, guys that are in here that have pulled the trigger, how much support do you need? How much support did my ex need? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to lump them together, but the scenarios are equal, I think.
Well, they need lots of support, the same as we do. They need lots of support, the same as we do. But when you're on the receiving side versus the giving side, I think it's a different perspective. And
it's definitely a different perspective. Yeah.
Having not been the one to pull that trigger on major relationships, I've broken up with women, but most of the major life-altering breakups I've had, I was on the receiving end. So I can't give that advice to a guy that lived a life and said, you know what, she was this, that, and the other. I had to pull the plug. I don't know how to counsel you. You have a different set of struggles than I have struggled with. I'm sure they need it. I just don't have that perspective and clarity to give it.
Yeah, I definitely can.
Well,
That next step can be scary as hell. I mean, you know, I just got remarried last month, and starting into dating and all that, it's scary as hell. But you just gotta try and keep as much of an open mind with it as you can, because I got fucked with a lot of things, but my wife isn't the one that fucked me, so I can't hold that against her.
No.
And she's divorced as well, and we each have our traumas and our baggage from our previous marriages. And open communication goes a long way for that, because there'll be something she does or something I do that sets the other off for no reason other than our trauma. But for us, I just say kumquat. That's our code word of, nope, I can't fucking do it right now. I'll come back to you when I've calmed down, and I'll explain why they set me off.
Yeah,
but
I think we talk about this.
That to come back.
Yeah, well, again, that's what I was going to say. Like, we had this conversation earlier, and that's the key, and that's the hard part. It's always been the hard part for me. It's there's this just like, no, I can't do it right now, and I'll do it later, but then later never comes because it's so much easier to just ignore shit, right? It is. It is. Now, does it in the long run? It doesn't make things easier, but in the moments or in those situations, it makes it a whole fucking lot easier if you can just ignore it and walk away from it. But boy, does that shit fester, and that probably was what led to I'm for sure that's what led to my divorce. I don't know if anyone else has that similar sort of experience. I think we all do, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all do to an extent. Yeah.
Hit the point with my ex where I'm fairly cold anymore. I mean, I'm not hostile by any means, but I just keep it as short and sweet as I can. My ex still loves to make shit awkward. Like 2 weeks ago, she came to pick up the kids and she's like, "Oh, congrats! I saw you got married again." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." She's like, "Well, I hope she's everything I couldn't be for you." I'm like, "Yeah, she's faithful." Like, what the fuck do you want from me right now? Just go away.
That's
That's
hilarious.
awesome. That's good
People
stuff.
shit like that all the time where I'm just like, why don't you just fucking leave?
Do
You
you-
know
do you-
how this conversation is going to go.
I think that's an important point. It's a funny point, but it's an important point to make. You really got to limit your interactions. You got to learn these big fancy words, boundaries and consequences, and crashing into boundaries. That shit it's there for a reason. It's talked about for a reason, because the better you are at setting your boundaries and maintaining them, the less conflict and bullshit you have in your life. And that's one of those things that, especially in the beginning, when you're sort of all worked up and pissed off and just emotional, one of the best things you can do is limit your fucking contact with that person as much as you
can't
can.
be rational at
No,
that
you can't.
point in time.
No, you're in fight or flight, freeze or fawn, whatever you're in. You're not in normal thinking, logical, like, yeah, well, let's maintain a civilized conversation. You're like, that fucking cunt cheated on me or whatever it is, right? You can't be a sound mind. I know I couldn't. And so one of the best things you can do is just limit your contact as much as you can. And stop fucking arguing. Well, she said this and her mother said, who gives a shit? Let her talk. Let her and her family and her friends. That's team. I was going to say cunt, but maybe that's the wrong word. That's team, the other side. Let that team fucking talk. They're going to anyway. Who gives a shit? Stop trying to defend yourself for people that you're never going to be able to that will never support you or see your side anyway. So again, limit the fucking contact and just.
Sorry for the people listening. Sometimes the best response is no response at all.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
no response
Yep.
is actually a response, and a lot
Absolutely.
of people don't realize that.
Yeah, you don't have to. There's no. And some people, I think there's a couple reasons to do it. One, I think, is to maintain that contact, right?
Yep.
So even if you're arguing, you're still talking, right? You're still getting her attention. So I think that's one part of it. The other part of it is I think they're still so hurt. They just want to. What does that saying? Hurt people hurt people. They're fucking hurting, and they just want to hurt back. And I get all of that, but it does you no good in the long run.
And
Well, and
for
some
me, in the
people-
beginning, I would antagonize her a little bit, just
Sure.
because I was gathering shit for court.
Oh yeah, well that's
And
true.
I had
That's
my
true.
phone on record every conversation.
That's true.
So I'd piss her off a little bit, and she wouldn't think and just start yelling at me. And I got a lot of good shit that way.
Yeah, well, it worked too, right? I mean, you have like 90% custody or something like that.
93.
93. So it kind of worked. I mean, I don't know if that tactic worked, but whatever you did worked because you have much more custody than she does.
Yep.
Justin, you were
And
going to say
it's
something?
not one size fits all. That's just what worked for me.
Sure.
Oh, a
Justin,
thousand
you're-
different things. So many cogwheels turning, brothers. So many cogwheels turning. Jared, you know I know you quite well, and in your case, 90% custody, totally appropriate. Honestly, 100% custody would have been totally appropriate. But I think we
Yep.
need to be careful of our verbiage because that's not a win. Respectfully, that's not a win. The
kids
biggest
lose,
win for those
No matter
kids,
what.
the biggest win for those kids would be having two parents well enough
Sure.
to parent 50-50 well. That's the biggest win in that. But I think there's so many
Sure.
different things at play here, right? Like
Sure.
when it
Yeah.
comes to conflict and breaking those ties, people who are used to existing in drama or
Mhm.
an excited state want to maintain that. Our neurochemistry is best there. So whether it's us doing it or the alternate side doing it, that breadcrumbing, I call it, like throwing little snippets to keep causing bullshit,
Yeah.
those little flare-ups, so even if it's only a 2-sentence argument, 2 texts back and forth, fuck you, no fuck me, right?
Right,
Like
right.
that little wee bit is engaging that brain chemistry that if you want to move past this, you really do need to change. So the faster you can break that contact, 120%. And I forgot the second half of my stream of consciousness. There's so many good points going around here, boys.
Well, no, and it's true. You have to sort of change what you do, right? But in the first step in that, I say this all the time, you got to be conscious of what you do. So if you got to be mindful, be aware. I know that mindful sounds like you should be on a fucking mountain going, oh, but it's not. It's just paying attention to your fucking thoughts and your actions to see there's patterns. And why am I doing this? And ask the question why so many fucking times. And then you can start to evaluate, is this something that's helping or hurting?
Yep.
And then you can start making some decisions. But it's hard. All this shit is hard. We're so, like you said, it's your neural pathways. It's the things that you do are ingrained within you, and you've been that way for a very fucking long time. So changing it is not easy. It's not the snap of a fucking finger. But it starts with being aware. Like, what am I
Well,
doing?
I was lucky
Perspective
on
is a really
that one.
funny thing.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jerry.
you're good. I was lucky on that front because you guys know the wedding dress story.
I do.
I was able to put all of my rage into that dress, and I'm done. All my rage
I
burned
admire
with the wedding dress that was covered in mud.
I admire that. I do think symbolic. I don't know if that's symbolic, but gestures I do think are important in this process. Like burning shit for sure. It was part of my program. It's part of my program. There's something about taking actions to sort of move on and let go that are extremely helpful. Burning shit, getting rid of shit, changing shit, like new furniture or whatever, moving shit, painting shit, like all of that stuff is so very helpful in this process. It allows you again to sort of start to see things and do things differently. And those steps, wearing your literally wearing, I couldn't fit into my ex-wife's wedding dress. I'm glad you could. She's 5'4".
I had to tighten the corset a lot, and it was terrible. Couldn't get the damn knots untied again. Had to take my pocket knife, cut the damn thing off me. And then if I moved back a little bit, the chest stayed where it was, and I was just surrounded by it. I'm just glad the damn thing didn't get wrapped up in the axles with me in it. Talk shop around my kids. There's code words, or I do it in Spanish. So my kids have no idea.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like 2 days after my ex left, I found out she was cheating on me on the couch in my living room. And so I got drunk one night, pulled a reclining sofa out of my house by myself and lit it on fire in the middle of my driveway.
Good for you.
My kids just think I hate green couches now. But, all right, that's fine. You can think I hate green couches.
Oh, that's too
But I wasn't going to sleep with that fucking thing in my house.
Until they say, "Oh, Dad, you can't come over to my friend Billy's house. They've got a green."
Right.
Now, did each of you guys? I think all y'all. I could be wrong on this. Stayed in the marital home. Am I wrong on this? I think everyone here did, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm still here.
What's that, Pete?
Yeah, I
I'm
am.
still here.
Yep, that's what I thought. Brian, you're in the
Yep.
same. Yeah. Okay. So, we lost Jared. So did you guys do anything like new furniture, painting, moving shit around, whatever? Did you guys do any of that stuff?
A lot of painting. I think just about every room has been painted. Not every room. A lot of painting. A lot of new furniture. There's still more stuff I'd like to do. Still eating off the same dishes and shit. Was thinking just the other day I'd just get rid of this shit and get some new stuff. But the one room that really got the fucking makeover was the bedroom.
Same.
The bedroom is, there ain't nothing in there that's the same.
Yep.
Yeah, in my bedroom, it's still pretty well the same. First thing I did was I rearranged my living room. It was like 4 months after, and I didn't realize how much I'd been avoiding rooms in my house until that day I rearranged my living room, and I actually had to get up off the couch to go to bed. Like, whoa, this is fucking weird. And then I remodeled my bathroom after that, and I just redid a bunch again last Friday.
Oh wow,
It's therapeutic, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah,
I
it
have-
helps you.
Just changing the space, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it doesn't
I have-
take a whole lot, really. Just something
Mm-mm.
small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can just move shit around.
Yep.
I wanted to tell, if you don't mind, I do want to cover some stats on the podcast. Nothing. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but it is the third birthday of this thing, and it always kind of really blows my mind when I look at some of these things, and I look at just the number of countries. So since the launch of this thing, it's been listened to now to varying degrees in terms of numbers, but it's been listened to in 119 different countries.
Wow.
Can you wrap your head around that? Because I have
That's
a hard
huge.
time doing that.
That is huge.
Now, some of it is, I can get down to like the ones and shits. Like Guatemala, only one listen. Ecuador, Ethiopia. Some of them are very, one listens, one offs. Nicaragua. That does start climbing a little bit. The Bahamas, 2. And I'm not going to read them all, but and then Russia, 3, which I would love to talk to these fucking people. I swear to Christ, if I say this all the time, if you're from, I don't know, if you even can contact me from China, 5 people or 5 listens from China, someone from China fucking contact me, please. I want to talk to you. How'd you find it? All these kinds of things. And why only 5? What the fuck? And it starts climbing. Uruguay, 7. Again, Uruguay. How the fuck does Slovenia, Nigeria, Thailand, 11. Well, there's some jokes there, I'm sure of it. Puerto Rico, 12. Starts climbing a little bit. Italy, 18. Brazil, 22. South Korea. Now it starts climbing a little bit more. Iceland, 35. South Korea, 36. Egypt, 41. And then Pakistan gets into the 50s. Spain into the 60s. Belgium, 74 times. Poland, 83 times. Norway, 112. South Africa, 163, and then it gets into the 200s, which is the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is Sweden at 202, Netherlands 206, France 216, Germany 310, Australia is third with 3,715 listens, the UK 5,130 listens, Canada coming in strong at number 2 at 6,020 listens, and then of course the US currently at 68,003 listens.
That is awesome.
It's fucking weird.
That is awesome. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
That is great.
It's
Now, they hear this in their language, Mike, or what?
No, they're just deciphering best they can my nonsense. Then maybe that's why there's only 5 listens. Maybe they thought the logo was cool and they were like, I'll give it a listen, and they couldn't fucking understand my nonsense. I don't know. But yeah, and then cities, I definitely won't go through all these, but 4,601 different cities across the world. 4,601 cities. That's, again, I don't.
What's the number 1 city with the evidently the most divorced guys that need to listen to this podcast?
That's a good question. So I will go over. I'll do the top 5. So funny enough, strangely, the top 2 are in Australia. So the number 1 city is Melbourne in Victoria, Australia, at 1,183 listens, and then Sydney, Australia, obviously 1,095. Next is Chicago at 1,064, Seattle at 1,032, and Philly at 1,011. And then it dips down from there. Ontario is 900, and then there's a bunch, obviously a bunch underneath there. But I don't know. That's a good question. And then, of course, if you look at that's the totality. If you look at, I thought you were drinking a Guinness. I thought when we were talking Irish, I thought I seen a Guinness there, Justin. Anyway, I'm like a rabid dog. I get distracted very easy. What the fuck was I even saying?
Sorry.
I saw Guinness and I got excited. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck I was saying. It depends on where you look. Like, so this is totality. This is like from everywhere. But then if you look at Apple, the last time I looked at Apple, I think and that's the top mechanism that people use to listen to the podcast. I think the top city with Apple, I think, is Seattle, maybe. So it's really interesting to sort of look at this shit and try and wrap my head around it all.
I'm afraid my numbers probably don't count because I'm a very visual person. And since you've started, doing the visual or the video podcasts, I'm doing YouTube almost exclusively. And I believe you've said in the past that somehow those numbers don't get ranked, counted.
They do not. They do not, which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't really. I mean, it's
I
that's
do
fine.
YouTube as well.
Do you? Yeah. So YouTube's definitely different. And now, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do going forward, but
What's
now
the number one episode?
Oh.
Do you have that metric?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's a great question.
Funny enough, it's not episode 1. It used to be episode 1. For a long time, it was episode 1, which makes sense, right?
Sure.
It's not. The last time I looked, yeah, it's actually episode 2. So episode 2 has been listened to 2,010 times. And that's the number 1 episode. The next one is episode 1, which is 1,969. There is, I think, so I know the top 5. It doesn't, I'd have to look at every single one, but the top 5 are 2, 1, 4, 3, and 11. And 11 is the least of the 5, or of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's 1,221 times. So it used to be episode 1, which makes sense. But then for some reason, in which I mean, that's a good episode, so I don't really give a shit. Episode 2 now leads the pack. So, and some of that obviously is time. Like, episode 2's been out there obviously longer than episode 123, right?
That's true. Good point.
And so that's a part of it. One of the things that is sort of interesting is that typically each episode is about 500 downloads within a 90-day window. So that's 30, 60, 90 is kind of what is the metric that, and of course all time, but those 3 are what's looked at and sort of measured by Buzzsprout, which is the host. So within that 90 days, typically it's about 500 downloads per episode. They say that with that number, I think I'm in the top like 30% of podcasts in the world. So, and you got to think that there's a lot of fucking podcasts out there that have like 2 episodes or 10 episodes or whatever. So it skews everything in a way. Like, obviously you got Rogan, who's probably got, I don't know, 1 million listens in 90 days or whatever it is. I don't know what the number is, but it's so hard to figure out like what is success with a podcast, right? People ask me like, how successful are you? I don't fucking know. I don't know. People listen. I know that much, but is it like compared to Rogan? It's nothing compared to, the other 2 million podcasts. I'm doing pretty fucking well, but it's hard to really measure it. And then everything sort of, you get it from different places. And so I can look at my total number of downloads, but I don't know how many people are actually listening and following. Apple tracks followers and Spotify tracks followers and Google, but Google's shutting down. And there's so many other podcasts that people listen on, but I don't like apps that they use, but they don't track. I don't see those metrics from them. So I can look at Apple and Spotify and I can tell you, what the number 1 episode is on there. But there's an app called, I think, Overcast or iHeartRadio. I don't have any metrics from those organizations, so I have no idea. And as far as I know, with YouTube, I don't get any real metrics either in terms of like where are people listening. I can tell you how many people. It's not as high as obviously what's going on here. I think as of this morning, I think I looked, there's 286, I think, followers on YouTube. But if you look at Apple, Spotify, and Google, there's over 1,000. But again, I'm missing some for sure. So it's really, I try not to look at these. I obviously do, but I try not to like focus on who's listening and what. Like YouTube will tell you how long did someone listen to a video before they stopped. I don't look at that shit because I'll lose my fucking mind. I'd be like, wait a minute, what did I say? Why did they stop then? What did I say then? It was something I did. Like you could literally lose your fucking mind if you really get into the minutia of this. And I just don't have any interest. I look at totals. I try not to do it. I do have a goal for the end of the year. I'm probably going to fall short, but I kind of took a little break in the middle of the year, so I'm okay with that. But I don't try to focus on it because all I can do is just put it out there and just keep putting it out there. And I think, they say, there's no such thing as an overnight success story. I fucking believe that. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. And so if I focus on, what kind of numbers I have every day or whatever, I'd stop. It's rare that I get a day where there isn't at least 50 listens on various episodes, but it happens. But if I looked at those days where I have 40 or 30, would I be like, oh fuck, what's going on? What's wrong? Why, it's not working. I got to shut it down. so I can't do that. I try not to look at that stuff. I lose my fucking mind. So
But you're not in it for that either, though, really.
no,
are
I just want to help,
Yeah.
man.
Exactly.
I just want to help.
So you know, it's like you said, it's hard to quantify. Is it
It is.
successful? Well, you know, depending on the measurement of success, sure.
Yeah.
I say absolutely 100% resounding.
I think so.
Yes, it's quite successful. So
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely reach folks for sure. Again,
Absolutely.
you know, 191 countries is a lot. I mean, again, some of them are 5 listens or 7 or whatever, but it's still reaching those folks. And maybe there was just one, maybe they only needed one episode. I think you need more than one, but maybe they only needed one. Maybe they just needed that legal one or that the suicide one, maybe even, or whatever. And that was enough to get them to a better place. That's all that fucking matters. I mean, I do get messages and comments. Spotify started this new Q&A thing, which is the stupidest fucking thing. It's called Q&A, but I can't A it. people will comment and I can't respond. So it's like if you look at Spotify on all the episodes, you can see comments, but I can't respond to them. It's fucking stupid. So there's not a lot of them, but it does happen. It's random people. Same with my YouTube channel. People do comment. So I know it's reaching people. And would it be nice if I was doing only this for a living? Yeah, you fucking right, it would. Is it possible? I don't know. Maybe. Again, I try not to. I'm just trying to put them out and put out stuff that that I'm going through in hopes that helps. But B, stuff that I went through and experts and professionals and folks that have lived it in order to help. And maybe someday I will be able to, you know, cash my check. You know,
How are you doing?
How am I doing?
You know, in regards to your divorce and going forward, is everything going well for you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the divorce is final. The 401k shit is still not fucking final. I got
not to get personal. I'm just asking you.
No,
is there any...
I don't mind. That's what I do. The 401k has been rejected now 4 times by Fidelity, because her lawyer is a fucking moron and doesn't know how to fill out a fucking form. I sincerely hope that she is not paying this fucking idiot to fill out these forms every single time, because that's why it's getting rejected, is because he doesn't know how to fill it out. So I just got an email on Tuesday or Wednesday from my lawyer that said, here's a new form. He did it again. Here's the 5th attempt or whatever the fuck it is at this point. Please sign this one and bring it back. So that's still ongoing. That definitely was difficult to deal with, because it was very like they were putting it on me like it was my fault, like I was doing something wrong. I was hiding money or moving money, and which is nonsense. The money's there, take it. Fucking, I mean, I don't want you to take it, but you're legally entitled to it. Like there's a divorce decree signed, and you're owed this money from this fund, so fucking take it already. But
Michael,
it keeps getting rejected.
Can you just fill the form out in its entirety minus that lawyer's signature and have him sign it? Because I went through a similar thing on transfer funds out of an IRA, and same thing. You know, form was filled out incorrectly, rejected, blah 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 blah. Yeah, and you know, I knew what the numbers were supposed to be. It's like here, put this figure in you know column.
Yeah.
You know, it's just.
I think and this is one of my weaknesses, right? This is like, I don't want to deal with it type thing. This is part of my weakness. So I think in hindsight, if I would have done that from the get-go, yeah, that's what I should have done. I kind of let them like, okay, you fucking figure it out, because you're supposed to figure it out per the divorce decree. It's on her and her lawyer to figure this shit out. But yes, I think, although I don't know how well that would have been received, because ultimately they sued me because they said I was being manipulative or whatever. Malicious intent to hide I don't know. Go fuck yourself. So I don't know that they would have accepted anything from me anyway, but I do wish that I would have just contacted Fidelity, which wasn't easy to find, because they have a QDRO department, Quadro, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Getting in touch with that department wasn't the easiest, but I did eventually get a number from a guy, or I talked with the guy and got his direct number, and he's like, just call me if you need any help. And I wish I would have just taken the bull by the horns initially when the first rejection came, and just worked with Fidelity to figure it out and fill it out properly, and then take it to them and say, here the fuck it is. All she has to do is sign it. But I'm hopeful, knock on wood, that this time they're going to get it right. I don't know. She's still not going to get the money she thinks she's going to get, just because of the performance of the fund, which I have nothing to do with, right? It's fucking stock market and the fund allocations. They ain't on me. So, but that definitely, it bothered me because she didn't trust me. And I don't know why that bothers me, because who gives a shit? But part of it did, because it's like, I'm not trying to fuck you here, woman. Like it's a court order. Yeah, so long story short, we're waiting on I got to print out and sign the latest version of this fucking form. And then my lawyer's like, just bring it to my office. But I'm thinking, why would I do that? Because then you're going to charge me to take it to her lawyer's office. So I think I'm just going to sign it and give it to her. And because that's what I did last time, because they gave me a short notice and I was leaving out of town. I was like, I can sign it and give it to my ex so she can sign it and take it to her lawyer. But that's where we're at with it. It's the last piece of the puzzle. It seems like it just wants to fucking drag on. But it bothered me that she thought that I was still trying to screw her financially, which is funny because it's not her fucking money, really. Well, and the thing is, it's the 401ks were so out of whack. You know, I had a good amount and she had a little bit. And so that means I had to give mine away. And for years, I can remember saying to her, hey, did you set up your retirement yet? And, you know, did you set that? Oh, no, HR this and HR that. And I don't have this form and that form. And so because she fucking took forever, it created this pretty big imbalance in our retirement accounts. And that's why I have to give her money. I don't think she deserves a fucking dime of it, but I'm not trying to, it's a court order. I can't run from it. Like, I'm not trying to withhold the money. You can have the money. In fact, I keep looking, waiting for the fucking money to disappear so I can figure out where is my baseline at. But hopefully, you know, knock on wood, by, I don't know, January or some shit. It seems like it takes forever to, because it's got to go, she's got to sign it, I got to sign it, it's got to go back to the judge signs off on it, and then they send it to Fidelity. So it'll probably be, and then Fidelity seems to take their good old fucking time. So it's probably going to be, I don't know, 2 or 3 months before I have a final. Hopefully this was the final one and I'll have to deal with it. But it does suck that there's just this thing that still sort of reminds you, you know, oh yeah, you got divorced. You know what I mean? It doesn't bother me as much, but it's one of those things like, boy, I'd really like to get that fucking done and over with.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Well,
If she presented you with a paper, would you just sign it?
yeah, I mean, if
I hate to give you the counterpoint again, brother. I can't help myself sometimes, but I don't trust my ex-wife as far as I can throw her. She's a tiny girl, so I can throw her a little bit of a ways, but not very far. And I would expect much the same in return. I wouldn't. Careful what you take on as your own burden. I don't trust my ex any more than you should trust your ex, and she should trust you, right? Like, I feel for the bullshit, and lawyers. Good lawyers are amazing. Bad lawyers are fucking leeches. I feel for the bullshit, but if I was divorcing you, I wouldn't trust you either.
Yeah,
you know I love you, but if I was divorcing you, I wouldn't trust you either.
I guess so. I mean, I guess it. Yeah, I guess I maybe held on to that. Like, I don't know. Just the. You know, you might not love me, but geez, maybe you could at least respect me and trust me. You know what I mean? Over a lawyer, like. Him over me, it just seems like you don't know that fucking guy. And not for nothing, but each time he fucks up, I hope he's not charging her, but I suspect he is. But every time he fucks up, and there's also the cynical part of me that's going, well, she's getting my fucking $1,000 a month for child support anyway, so what the fuck does she care if she has to pay a lawyer a little bit? You know what I mean? So why don't you want this done? Don't you want this done? I mean, I said to her, we could figure out how to fill out this fucking form. I'm sure of it. Nope, I'm not. I'm using my attorney. Okay, fine, whatever. It's an important part of it. I mean, I don't know if it affects. It probably doesn't affect older kids the same as younger kids, but like, it's important for sure for younger kids to not bash the other party. It just doesn't help. It's not helpful because they, as Chris says this all the time, they intrinsically know they're half you and half them. So if you're knocking the other half, that's half of them that you're knocking. And it puts them in an awkward fucking position. So I think I'm pretty good at not doing that because I know that, but I'm sure sometimes, I'm sure I slip up because sometimes it's hard, you know, sometimes it's like,
especially when they catch you off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I fucked up once last year. I was camping with all my kids and, you know, we're in my camper and my boy, he looks at me and goes, you remember when Mom and Luke used to sleep up there together all the time? And I just,
Cool.
yeah, that wasn't very good of him, was it? And I felt like a piece of shit, but I just reacted because it caught me so off guard.
Well, sometimes the truth is okay. It's just, I mean, I don't think, I mean, I didn't hear anything too bad in what you said, honestly. I mean, I think some people take it to the extreme and like, your mother's, trying to take you from me or, she's an evil person or, whatever it is that it can be like, not subtle, you know what I mean? Just over the
Yeah.
top, hit you over the head with your mother's a piece of shit. Now, I feel that way sometimes, but I don't say that. I don't say
I've
that.
had that from the other side.
I'm sure. Of course.
There was one time my 4-year-old at the time wouldn't even look at me.
Jesus.
And finally got him to talk to me. He's like, I was just told I'm supposed to hate you right now.
Oh, see, that's
Wow.
that's
not right.
fucked up.
That's
See,
Yeah,
child
me and
abuse.
the ex-mother-in-law,
Yeah, it is.
we had a
That's
great
absolute child
conversation
abuse.
in the front yard.
Yeah, no,
And
that is
he did not
that's-
enjoy it.
that is child abuse 100%. 100 fucking percent. That kid's gonna have to bear that burden,
Yeah.
for forever.
Yep.
And hopefully
Yeah,
she doesn't
that,
do it.
That shit doesn't go away.
No, and hopefully she doesn't continue, but I got a feeling she probably would. But
Yep.
the good
That
thing
one
is,
wasn't my ex, it was her mom.
yeah, well,
Which-
still,
They lived together.
yeah,
And me and her mom had a very deep, intimate conversation in the front yard.
Yeah.
And she's very much a keeping up appearances type person. And she lives in suburbs, so I made sure to yell out to all the neighbors that her daughter is the dildo salesman too, and they're probably getting delivered to her front door. Fuck you, stupid bitch.
Oh, that is so funny. So if I need dildos, call your ex-wife. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure. I thought about buying one from her and giving it back to her so she can go fuck herself. Hope they come in cactus form.
Oh, that's good shit. Well, I don't know if we want to keep chatting or not, gents.
Ah, I'm happy either way.
I think I'm gonna do one more shot. Is there any topics that we want to cover for sure that we really should talk about this stuff that's I'm thinking about the guy who's just starting this shit show. Like we had a guy on earlier, Justin and Jared, you were here, Brian, you were here too for a little bit, David. He's obviously in the thick of it. I wonder if there's anything that we can share with him that we probably are. I mean, we covered a good bit, but if there's any one solid piece of advice for that man or for anyone that's just kind of starting this shit show.
Just reach out for help. That's my suggestion. If you're hurting, you got questions, look for somebody who's going through what you're going through.
Yep. And sometimes day at a time isn't enough. Sometimes you do it an hour at a time. You do it a minute at a time. There isn't a time frame on it. It's fucking rough, but you'll get through it.
Yeah.
And go at your pace. Don't try and rush it. Don't get discouraged because somebody is further ahead in your eyes than where you're at because of the time frame. Time frames are fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's up to you where you're going to be.
Yeah, Jared, I think that's a very valid point, and that's what I told myself for so long was one day at a time. But you are absolutely right. It's an hour at a time, a minute at a time. An issue, an episode at a time. Yeah, you're right. And I guess my advice for anybody would just be focus on what you can do to keep your sanity, keep yourself grounded in some sort of reality and normality, and just go with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Justin, my Canadian friend, any words of wisdom?
All of life is sort of one big airplane drill. You can't help a fucking person if you're passed out because you didn't get oxygen. So put on your own mask first. That's number one. Right? You need to be willing to help yourself if you're going to help those around you that depend on you, because
Good,
the ones
good
that really
metaphor.
matter at the end of the day. You got to be there to help your kids. You got to be there to help your family. You got to be there to help your extended family. As the circle gets wider, the burden of responsibility gets less. And somewhere that burden of responsibility crosses with the the threshold of appropriate selfishness. There are issues, matters, people, etc. that number one, you probably can't help it to begin with. And number two, even if you could, and it's not your fucking problem. So focus your attention on the matters that matter. You know, there's a great book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's actually not about not giving fucks. It's about giving the right fucks and applying those fucks where they count. So focus your energy into the things that you can do immediately to improve your situation. And it is minute by minute and hour by hour. There's going to be some hours that you're fucking useless, and that's okay. You still have worth. You still have value. You are still needed here completely, wholly. But when the next hour comes around and you do have a bit more bandwidth, focus that into the first thing you can do to set yourself up for a better life. You know, I've talked a few times with a number of different members. Start running things through a bit of a self-check. As you're going through your day and making decisions, as you go to make a decision, say, hey, wait a minute. My name's Justin. Is this decision I'm about to make? What decision would the person I'm trying to be make? The Justin that I want to be, would that be the decision he would make? And sometimes the answer is going to be no. And that's okay too. You got to love yourself, even in your broken form, and you got to figure out how to deal with your broken self. But by running those day-to-day decisions through that little self-check, is this a decision that the person I'm trying to be would make? It opens up doors massively, and it's in the moment by moment. I think so far too often in the self-help circles, we all want a silver bullet. We all want a Band-Aid. We all want a life that's together. And, you know, I want a Harley and a blonde 20-year-old and a mansion on the beach too. Like, everybody wants that, you know.
Right.
But by running all of these decisions through the moment by moment self-check, is this a decision that will lead me towards the person I want to be or not? And am I okay with that decision? Just the momentary self-check, it spurs action, you know, like it spurs action. And time is powerful, but time is only powerful if it's used. If you sit on your hands, time's going to get you nowhere. So
yeah,
that
amen.
would be my short and sweet.
I love it. I mean, I agree with so many on all of that. I think one of the things that, and I'll wrap up with this, and then I'll do one more shot because I like whiskey.
And
Hey,
after your wrap up, I have a caveat on that as well.
All right. So I think, you know, the device or the advice is a lot of times we hear this, you know, just give it time, which I kind of hate that because I think that gives you or us sometimes an excuse to not do anything and expect some kind of change. But and that's just not going to happen. It's just, let's just be plain and fucking honest here. If you don't do nothing, nothing changes, right? But I do think there are moments, and I wanted to say this to David earlier, but I forgot about it, or I didn't get to it, or whatever. There are moments where that question, right? You know, who do I want to be? What kind of actions would I take if I was that person or whatever? Is great. And sometimes, like you said, the answer is not going to line up with where you're at. And so sometimes no action is okay. Sometimes sitting on the couch and crying is okay. Those dishes aren't going any fucking where. If you can eat, you're fine. If you need to do one dish, do one dish. But there are moments where sitting on the couch, laying on the couch and crying and or fucking watching Ted Lasso, whatever you want to do, fucking do that. You don't always need to be pushing yourself. You do need to, but there are moments when you have to give yourself permission to just fucking exist in a relaxed and comfortable state. So that's all I got for me. I'm going to let Jared finish up and I'm going to do another shot because I can. Here's to all you gentlemen, all of you that are watching. There are a few watching, all of you that listen, all of you that are a part of the Discord. I love you all. Thank you so much for being a part of this fucking journey.
Give me a sec. I'm getting my shot.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Skull.
Oh, look at you.
Cheers.
Launching, gents.
Thanks. All right, Jared, you wrap it up. You bring it home, my friend.
All right. So on Justin's earlier point, I am also going to quote Justin.
This is dangerous. How stoned was I, brother?
Oh, I don't know. We've had a lot of drunken stoned conversations. But so give yourself grace too. So quoting Justin, the Justin then, did he do the best that the Justin then knew how? The Justin now knows better, but you can't fault the old guy because he was doing what he could.
Very true.
And so make sure to give yourself grace. Don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah, we all fucked up at some point. We have a hand in this, but give yourself grace in it as well.
Yeah, amen. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Lonnie, thanks for hanging with us. Appreciate it. Lonnie says we're all awesome. I don't know about me, but these guys are awesome. I'll give you that. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you. And I'm sure I'll see you guys next week in the meeting.
Shit, yeah. Well, we got a
Happy
meeting tomorrow.
Thanksgiving,
You guys
gentlemen.
want to jump
Yes.
in as well.
Happy Thanksgiving. That's right. Jared will be in the meeting. We'll be in the meeting room tomorrow evening. I will have my children's, so I definitely won't be joining you. But if anyone is not in the Discord and you want to join the Discord, it's $5 a month. Send me a link or send me a message or get a link in the info. It's certainly fucking worth it. These guys contribute. I appreciate it. And the money goes towards the podcast for sure. And it's going to be needed, especially at the end of the year. I got to renew Zoom and Otter, which is a transcript service. So it's needed and appreciated. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Since my separation in July of 2019, I have done an incredible amount of work on myself. I've had many different therapists, life coaches, and went through different programs. I've taken all that I've learned and put it into my own program called Forged by Fire. If you are interested in having me help you navigate your divorce, please hit my website, risingphoenixdivorcecoach.com. I look forward to working with you.